Good evening, everyone. Good Tuesday evening, Six Nations. You're joining us for General Council, Tuesday, July 9th. We're starting just a little bit late. We were waiting for quorum. We have quorum now. We have two joining us by Zoom, Dale and Cynthia. And we have some members away at AFN, including Chief Sherry Lynn. And with her are Amos, Dean, Greg, and Leslie. So if I could have an identification of any media on the line. Not seeing or hearing anyone. Number 2 is community acknowledgements. I don't have a list of anything. Does anybody have any community acknowledgements they would like to share? None. 3 would be the adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions? I have Dale's hand up. Dale, go ahead.
I was just recalling, and then this might fit under number 7 on the updates from the committee, but I thought we had a recommendation that was coming from the built environment in relation to a recommendation for Helen Miller to sit on the housing portfolio on the Chiefs of Ontario.
You want to speak to that at that time for the committee updates?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a good catch, Dale. I don't see built environment on there. Okay, so adoption of the agenda.
I'll move.
Carrie and Audrey, thank you. And no delegations or presentations this evening. Number 5 is adoption of General Council minutes of June 25th, 2024. I'll give everyone a minute. Helen will move the minutes and Audrey will second. And number 6 is an update on Ganeos. Nathan?
Thanks, Chair. There is a PowerPoint. Brooke, if you can just quickly load it. But before we get into it, I just wanted to give a quick update on some of the more kind of permanent kind of items that we're working forward on. The history of Ganeos, as we all know, it was built in 1982. I have 1981 on the slide, for $1 million. And folks will recall at the time, it was originally operated by Health and Welfare Canada. New additions were added 2022 and 2023 with new directions, as well as the pharmacy. And I will note those are important going forward as we continue to do this work. The building has been closed since April 23rd, 2024. And this is as a result of an environmental report that deemed the building unfit for occupancy. And we've since been operating the services in White Pines starting in May. So the next slide talks a lot about the ownership, and this was a big piece at the onset because ISK was insisting that they were not the owners. We were insisting that we weren't the owners. So we did some digging in to support our position with the information that was provided to us, and continued to determine that we aren't the owners of that particular building. There was never an exchange or a motion passed by council to accept that building under Six Nations of the Grand River. It's interesting because ISK continues to carry the responsibility for the building, and that is inclusive of maintenance and upkeep. So just so we know, the ISK is currently administering the following services. They were doing so at Ganyos, and that was medical services, public health, sexual health, as well as laboratory services. Since the closure of Ganyos, ISK has advised Six Nations also that it is not under its list of assets, and we've done our search as well. It's not under our list of assets going forward. So the next slide really talks a bit about the escalation strategy. On June 25th, after a lot of work by the Chief's office, we did secure a meeting with Minister Haiju. Among other things, she did signal that ISK would cover the cost of either remediation or a new build, regardless of ownership. So basically, they were putting that issue aside and signaling to us that they're going to cover the cost of either that remediation or the new build. Prior to meeting with Minister Haiju, I did meet with Assistant Deputy Minister Jennifer Wheatley. It was a really good meeting. They committed to fast tracking the assessment stage. And the assessment stage will help us determine whether we're going to either remediate or go forward with a new build. We've already actually started the assessment with the environmental report. So we now have to do some structural assessments. And basically the work's going to lead us to the conclusion that we need a new building. In addition to that, the Assistant Deputy Minister did agree with us that we need to fast track the assessment process. If we have good vendors already in place to do this work, let's go with those vendors. So it was good that they did fast track that particular piece because we need to really determine that remediation or new build right off the bat. And ESCA is covering the cost of that assessment as well. In addition to that, I talked with the Assistant Deputy Minister about finding some alternative spaces because we were hearing from the community that White Pines was a little crowded. So they are investigating those alternative spaces to deliver their services. And that is inclusive of mobile units. So I do have a meeting again, Chief's office as well as the Deputy Minister's office next week. Not confirmed yet, but we're still working on some timing. We'll get further updates on their plans for the alternative spaces. I also wanted to kind of highlight that kind of the individual who's been the main contact for the purposes of both moving the services as well as the ongoing closure has been Lisa Westaway. She's with the First Nations Inuit and Health Branch for the Ontario region. And she's been the point of contact on a lot of the work. But as you see, we have escalated it to the Deputy Minister's office as well as the minister herself. Yep.
And are you including our Director of Well-being with you as well? She's in attendance? And her staff support and have done the background work. Well, that's good to know and to let the community know and us,
Next slide. So the project team. Just to respond to Audrey's, the project team is our Director of Health is there, Deb Jonathan. We also have Holly Smith, Derek for facilities, and Robert and Derek for facilities, Mike Montour for minor and major capital. Vince is also there for minor and major capital. And if we do require that, the project team, this is on the administration side, of course. And Linda's been very much involved when we do meet with the Assistant Deputy Minister and Deputy Minister. That's inclusive of those meetings as well.
Helen and then Hazel, Helen, Carrie, Hazel, sorry.
So is there a lot of mold in there? Like a lot? Where is it? On the ceiling or the,
It's all throughout the walls in the dental clinic.
oh,
It's also in the ceiling and it's leaching into the floors. So one of the walls was exposed anyway, and you can see, and I can send the pictures out as well. It's just all black.
oh. So if they're gonna build a new building, is that gonna happen in my lifetime?
That's what this slide kind of speaks to is within the next 2 weeks, we want to have that project plan with timelines to include both the assessment piece as well as if we're considering that new build, how long that'll take as well, because we'll have to figure out what those alternative service delivery plans are to keep those services in function while we go forward with either the remediation or the new build.
I know some people have said they don't like having to go to the family health team for the lab stuff. The lab work.
Yeah, we've been taking in those concerns, and that's why we want to develop that interim service plan going forward within the next few weeks.
Carrie?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you got a dollar figure on estimate for a rebuild. I hope ISC is not, it's not looking at that 1 million figure from 81.
No, they're not looking at that. And what we want to do next in terms of the assessment piece is the remediation piece is kind of already done, but we want to consider what the assessment should be in terms of a new build. Should we go down that route to ensure that the build is adequate enough for our future population going forward, as well as the services that will be delivered out there? I don't think a single floor building will be adequate. We'll be looking at multiple floors.
Hazel and then Audrey?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, will the new build be in the same location? Or will there be a new, property location for this? Because as we know, the pharmacy is still there and also, the one in the back, I'm sure. Okay, mental health. So they would be disturbed if, the building is torn down, right?
So what I understood, there's a number of ways we could do it in terms of the internal build, because both of those structures are already in place. We would take out the existing kind of infrastructure and what we want to do so we don't have to move the services. And again, these are plans for consideration. Is build up as opposed to moving it to another location. And of course, we'll keep those individuals that are part of that building in communication as we go. So the plan right now is to do the assessment based on the existing location, but we might have to go up a couple of floors.
5 floors maybe.
Audrey?
Thanks, Elena. Oh, sorry about my voice. I'm still getting over pneumonia and it's a little bit on the scratchy side right now. My question is, how will the community be engaged and will they be supplied with these details and ask for their input? And also, is there a chair of well-being? Because there are 2 chairs on this collaboration committee too, so there's better collaboration, more transparency, and everybody knows what they're doing. It'll come back to full council, right? And council makes a decision, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Nathan, do you have any more? Hazel?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have hands up online, I'm sorry. Dale and then Cynthia.
Dale here. I know, Nathan, a lot of these questions you can't answer just because you're initiating those meetings, but I guess hopefully you can, in the next couple of weeks, when you have your follow-up meetings, we can have a lot of those answers. But my question deals directly with your last slide there in relation to it talks about a political decision. Now, I want it understood with yourself and with Indian Affairs is that, you know, fixing up the building or replacing the building is one issue. The takeover or the transfer of public health is a totally separate issue, and I don't want them to hinge the takeover of public health on the remediation work that needs to get done for this community. So I want to make sure that those are two clearly separate issues and not to hinge on each other.
Thanks. Whoa. Sorry about that. Thanks for that, Dale. No, that's exactly why I was going to get to that next in terms of the discussion, to separate that out, because the chief's office was very clear about that in terms of in that meeting with Minister Haiju, and we've been very clear on that with our meetings with the officials. But it's still there as, it's not hinging on it, but it is there for discussion. And it's not a discussion that at the official levels we can have. That's more for chief and council as well as the minister.
Cynthia?
Thank you. That was part of my question too, that Dale just asked, but another question I have, it just seems in that vicinity, Ganios, housing, lands, membership, Iroquois Lodge are all suffering from the same exposure to this mold. And I do believe I had heard that part of the issue was lack of the regular maintenance. It started with COVID, I understand, but I'm just wondering about the water flow through that area, if there's any consideration of that. Underground water.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Cynthia, in terms of the assessment phase of things now, because there is that environmental kind of component that we have to adhere to through that assessment phase to ensure that the water flow does not damage. And also, for that matter, it's kind of looking at these assessments differently as well, because now we have to plan for climate change. And, you know, like even the conditions that we're going forward with in the last few weeks, the heat, you know, causes a lot of dampness and causes that damage as well. So as we do the assessments and we come forward with the plans for either remediation or a new build, those will be incorporated as well. The water flow, the environmental assessments, as well as climate change adaptation.
Audrey?
Nate, my question about how we're gonna include the community in all this was not answered.
I think first we should get the information, and council should look at the information first by way of the assessment, and then from there develop a community plan, community engagement plan.
Wonderful, thank you.
Carrie?
Just a final question on, have you found a location for the dental clinic?
I'll provide there'll be probably an update going out to the community on that, but there was a few locations being explored. Nothing definitive yet, but we meet every Thursday morning. So I'll get the most recent update on Thursday morning on where they're at with the dental. But that's something too we're pushing ISCARD on, just to say, you know, at this particular point, can you at least get a mobile unit down here for the purposes of providing that service? And that was the end of my presentation. Just that final point on that political piece that's still kind of hanging over the discussions.
Thank you, Nathan. And now we have update from committees. Is there anyone available to give an update from the Justice Committee if there is one?
This is Dale here.
Go ahead, Dale.
I know I know we're working on a few things in the justice. I know Tim was working on updating all the, where we are with all the bylaws that we have. But the more urgent issue that we're kind of dealing with right now with the Six Nations Police and with the Environment Office is to look at what we can do about the dumping on that's happening on Six Nations. And there's 2 locations. One is on 4th and one is on Cheesewood. So we are looking into that, and hopefully we'll, in our next meeting, we can have a more concrete update from Tim in relation to some next steps. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next is an update from the Wealth and Economy Committee, and the chair would be Greg, co-chair is me, and then Dean is on that committee. I would update, I'd rather update later as I was not available for the last. Oh, Dean's available. Dean, we're doing an update from the Wealth and Economy. Do you have anything from the last meeting that you're able to share?
At the moment, not quite, as there is some moving pieces that Greg, the chair still has to confirm with a couple of them, and then we're gonna bring it back to when we have a full committee. So basically when we can update you personally, Elena, and the committee, and then we'll bring it to council.
Thank you. And lands and membership, do we have anybody available for lands and membership update?
Yeah, I can let people know what we're dealing with. We had the meeting with the second generation cutoff. That's the biggest one right now that lands and membership is dealing with, because they're pushing right forward with it. I don't know, did we get a response from the email that we sent? I don't know if we did or not. Anyway. The other issues is estates, and she's got a meeting with ISK to talk about estates. So I requested that I want to be at that meeting, just so I can learn what's going on. Because estates is a big issue. We're running into a lot of issues with families, because INAC's not doing the estates the way they're supposed to be doing them. Basically, what they do now is if there's a will, they just approve who the executor is and say, here's a will, go ahead and do it. Sometimes the executors aren't following the will. If there isn't a will, then INAC appoints an administrator. You're appointed the administrator, you go ahead and do whatever it is you gotta do, kind of wash their hands of it once they do that. And there's issues because they're not everyone is honest, and they're not always honoring the will, because nobody's monitoring or anything like that. Years ago, I'm going back years ago, when I think he was a Moses and a Hill looked after estates. They used to do it right to the end. Like they would sit down and meet with the executor and make sure that they're following the will, or families or whatever knew what was in there and what was going on. And is my thing on? Oh, and nowadays, and then there's hardly nobody there. I got a call from a gentleman where he's been trying to deal with his wife's been trying to deal with her sister's estate, and they can never get nobody to answer the phone. She hasn't even been approved as the administrator. And that's what she needs in order to fulfill the will. But they can't never get nobody on the phone. Nobody calls them back. So there's a lot of issues. So when ISK is coming down, I can't remember when Lori said the meeting was, but ISK's coming down and we're gonna talk about estates. I know a lot of people question why council isn't doing estates, but that's I don't think any council ever contemplated doing estates. I don't know why. Probably because we got no money. I don't know if there's a lot of money with it. So she's doing that. The other one that we have big issues with, encroachment of lands. Encroachment of banned lands, we've got a few people putting buildings on banned lands, the parts of buildings on banned land. And they're just, I don't know whether they're not looking for those survey things or whether they're just using their eye, because a lot of people just use their eye. Oh, my thing goes this way. There's one major issue we have with encroachment that has to come to council. It's got a building on it. A big building. And it's on banned land. But the person thought it was their land. So I think she's gonna have to be bringing that to council. So that's another one we have. There's quite a few of those. So we got that one that we're gonna be working with. Oh God, there's so many. I don't know where, what else? Oh, the status cards. A person was going across the border. Or a person was applying for a status card, a white status card. And they sent the orange card as ID and the INAC wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't accept the orange status card as identification. And I said, how can they not accept it? They're the ones that it's their card. But they wouldn't accept it as identification to get a white card. So, and there's issues with, people going across the border with status cards and white cards and all different things. So that's another issue that we need to address too, is INAC's not even accepting its own status card. And then there's a lot of issues with status cards, but I think right now those are pretty much the main ones. We're really concentrating on the second generation cutoff because that's right in front of our face. And she did come, we learned a lot, but it's still confusing for some people. So, and of course, we noticed that our population has jumped almost to 4,000 from what we normally thought it was. So, and along with those 4,000 people, they don't send any money. And we heard Amos mentions that he's going to bring something from post-secondary because they're desperately in need of money. And that's because all of these people coming on that's the first place they're going is post-secondary, and they're not giving us any more money to accommodate. I don't know why the forces that be, like Chiefs of Ontario and the AFN, never did anything with all of these new members coming back on with the C3s and the S6s and the enfranchised and generation cutoff. They never really did anything, like didn't really deal with that to make sure that there was money coming with them. And the reason I probably think it wasn't a big deal with those two organizations is because the majority of reserves are small. They probably don't even have a lot of people coming back. They weren't hit like Six Nations is hit. We've been hit hard with that. And we're going to get hit harder with that second generation cutoff. And as I had mentioned earlier when I was talking about it when Lori was here, we really need to look at those 6-2s. We got to do something. I don't like the fact that full-blooded, well, I'm saying full-blooded children are being registered as half because the mother won't name the father. That's not right. That's not right to those kids. And they don't have a voice, unfortunately, our little kids. So we have to speak up for them. and make sure they're registered as they should be. But that's one way of getting rid of us. That's why they're doing that. Because the second generation cutoff, if they get cut off at the second generation, then there's no Indians left after that. Everybody's gone. So it's a real big issue that we need to address, and I don't know why none of the, like, WHO and the AFN haven't really done anything with all of this, and it's the money, we need the money to do. I know post-secondary is really hurting. But anyway, that's that, and I don't know if Hazel might wanna add something that I've never mentioned that we've been dealing with, but there's so many things, it's hard to, which one do we do first?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. There are so many things, and I think the way Indian Affairs is set up now, there's a building in Brantford with the door locked and nobody answers the phone. And people are going up there to try and take care of their estates, like the executors who are in charge of estates, etc. And they can't even get to first base. You don't know who to call. I don't know who that lady, I don't know what her name is, Helen, the one that they were talking about that you can get in touch with, but I know the one girl that I was just talking to the other day, she just called the Toronto office, but I think it's a real shame that ISK, like the job that they're doing is not good. Bottom line, they're not putting anything into this, and it's sort of just leaving everybody to stumble around and try and find their way with matters that should be easy to access. I know when Indian Affairs was in Brantford, I worked there, and Bill Hill and Norton Martin did the lands and estates. They did it there. And I'm thinking, and I know Lori, they need more room. I think the best thing that could probably happen is to transfer the lands and estates here and have it administered here. But then again, ISK is going to have to provide some dollars for salaries, and that means the dollars that they send here should be comparable to what they pay themselves, not somebody down here doing. It's like that for all of our jobs. Indian Affairs is paying themselves real good, and the people here get probably half or less of what those people are paying. I think it makes it difficult for elders, and I think even with wills and estates, we should have an advocacy worker too that would go along with the wills or the estates. It could be a sequence of an office that helps people start to finish with their business instead of running around trying to find somebody. The building in Brantford is really crazy. You got the name on this big building, you go there and the doors are all locked. Nobody will answer the phone. And it leaves the people out here in a dilemma trying to finalize. They've already lost their loved one. And that's a hard thing to do, is be an executor for an estate. And then they have to deal with this, and I'm speaking from experience. That's why I know that we have to, maybe council should just talk about taking on the estates here. Have ISK send money for that to happen. We need more infrastructure, of course, because everybody's running out of office space. And I just want to say to Indian Affairs, if you're listening, I hope you hear what I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Internal Systems Committee. And the members of that committee are Cynthia Dale and myself, and I'm serving as chair, and Cynthia co-chair. The Internal Systems Committee is a committee who sits with the Finance Department, IT, Communications, and HR. And what we've been working on so far, we've had about 4 meetings so far with the full committee. We're working on bringing policies up to date. A lot of what happens, because that's internal systems, oh, and central admin. A lot of what happens there, though, would be confidential in terms of employees and things like that, names. But right now we're working on policies, and any changes to those policies then come with a recommendation to full council, and for those recommendations to be changed within the policy. And the next committee for an update is Community Committee, and that committee actually has a recommendation. It's moved by Melba Thomas and seconded by Leslie Green, that the Community Political Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council that Dean Hill sit on the Chiefs of Ontario Employment Table Working Group. Melba and Leslie are not here. Do they need to be here for us to? Helen will move. I'll second that. Hazel will second. And is everyone in favor? Go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, and I'll be meeting with Dean to bring him up to date on what's been happening. Yeah, I want to meet with Dean when he has time to bring him up to date on what's been happening with the employment working table. I have lots of documentations for him.
It looks like everyone's in favor. Anyone opposed? Anybody online? Cynthia or Dale, everyone's in favor? Motion is passed. And then we have another recommendation moved by Melba Thomas and seconded by Leslie Green, that the Community Political Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council that external committees as a whole be discussed and finalized at full council. So we'll need a present mover and seconder. Audrey? Yeah, can you use your mic?
Yes, I'd like to see if they could add their mandate as well. And all committees there should have all the names of the people. We've been asking this for a while now. And hopefully we get it soon, but it's really hard to keep track of who's on what committee, what their mandate is, and how broad their mandate goes, who's working on them. Like, this is the first time I've heard that you had other departments working with you on the which committee is that?
Internal systems?
The internal systems one. I thought it was just councils working there, but apparently departments are working there too.
Yeah. That's all the internal systems departments, right? They have to go somewhere. They have to sit somewhere.
No, I don't have a problem with, I think it's good. I just
Yeah,
didn't know until you just mentioned it.
okay.
Yeah.
Helen?
I noticed that too when I came to the housing committee meeting last couple of weeks ago to bring them up to date on what's going on with housing, and this building, it was full. That's so many people that have sitting on their committee. We had like me and Hazel, it didn't mean Hazel and Lori and Trevor sitting on our committee, like I was thinking, oh my God, look at all the people they got sitting on their committee, helping them do their work. So I thought that was, I guess there's nobody to sit on our committee, but I mean, there's just us gonna be doing all the stuff, so. I didn't know that's how the committees were gonna work, that they're gonna have all of these people sitting there. I thought they were council committees.
Yeah, so you attended the Built Environment Committee. That's Dale,
Yeah.
Carrie, and myself. But that one was an amalgamation of two committees. So when you say it's full, environment was supposed to be separate and now it's in with built environment and climate adaptation. We amalgamated them. And then public works and, who else is there? Housing. So, and all of those directors would come and anybody that they're bringing would also attend. Audrey.
And we have Amos and I sitting there for education, and I'm the chair for that, language and culture, Amos chairs that part. And that's us, two other counselors drop in the odd time but all the other committees are all built and well established with all the departments here. You've got many, many people working for them. We don't have that. We're building this from scratch, the education system. And it's really hard because we need to have people with certain skill sets and education to help build this system and work together with the federal government teachers that are there because they have a wealth of information and advice to share with us. So we had a really good meeting with a few of them, and we'll continue to meet as needed. Yeah. Well,
Okay, so recommendation 7F, we'll get back to that one. I'll read it again. And you said you had a friendly amendment, Audrey. Moved by Melba Thomas and seconded by Leslie Green that the Community Political Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council that external committees as a whole be discussed and finalized at full council. So what I'm assuming that, I don't know if Melba and Leslie are not here. Dean is online. Dean, do you want to speak to that from your committee?
Yeah, sure, I can. What we were discussing in our committee is with all the external tables that other counselors are still holding that don't necessarily fall into the committee they are under. We just kind of wanted to get this established on where all these committees are supposed to be situated within all the external committees need to be with the political committees we've established within our council. It was just a discussion to kind of get all of those out there on the table. So then we can divvy it out to who's responsible for each of them. Thank you. For example, the one we just passed, the employment working table, community committee does oversee and work with Ontario Works. So it would, make sense for the employment working table to be under that one, but it wasn't just until now. So I'm sure there's more of these external committees that councillors are currently holding that may not necessarily belong to the political committee. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have a present counselor to move that? Was it you, Audrey? Audrey will move and seconder. Helen, all in favor? With Audrey's friendly amendment, which is adding the mandate, adding the names of the members, council members.
no. And we need more people on education from this council.
So we're adding the names of the council members to their committees and the full mandate. And that's okay with you, Helen? Can you use your mic?
Yeah, all I want is who sits on these committees? What's their mandates? Because I don't even know who sits on all these committees.
So
Who
there is a
sits there and
document
what the mandates
somewhere.
are.
There's a document somewhere that says where we all sit. That was circulated, but the mandates haven't been. I know that for sure.
No, I mean, we need everything all in. Who sits there, what the mandate is, who sits there, all in one document, so I'm not going all over looking to see who's doing what.
You're right, that would be helpful. You hit your mic? Thank you. Audrey?
Yes, and is it possible to add the terms of reference to it as well?
And add the terms of reference. And are we all in favor?
I feel better.
Yes. Anybody opposed? No? Okay. Pass, thank you. Sorry, say that one more time.
She has a report.
Oh. Did we add that? I'm sorry, I must have missed that. Oh, okay, can we, is it for a committee?
No, it's as a counselor.
Okay, can we do the committee, finish the committees first? Okay, thank you. We have one more, and we're adding the Built Environment and Climate Adaptation Committee, and Dale was going to speak to that.
Yes, I know what we had in our built environment, we had made a recommendation, and I think it was in June, our last committee meeting. And one of the things we were looking at was when Helen was at our committee meeting, and with the extensive, I guess, knowledge and background, because she's been attending that meetings for years now, maybe even a decade, she's been attending that meeting. So one of the recommendations that we had made to council was to recommend to council that Helen sit at the Chiefs of Ontario Housing Committee. I know she's not on the Built Environment Committee and Adaptation Committee, but because of her extensive knowledge and background on that's one of the recommendations that we were made. And I think Lena from the committee, you had moved it and I had seconded that this come to council for recommendation that Helen sit at the Housing Committee for Chiefs of Ontario.
Thanks,
So I
Dale.
mean, if I need to move that, I'll move it again.
If you could.
Yeah, I'll move that. The Six Nations Elected Council recommend that Helen sit on the Chiefs of Ontario Housing Committee.
And Audrey will second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing or hearing none, the motion is passed. So we've had motions for recommendation 7E, 7F, and we'll add that last one from Built Environment. But for recommendation 7A to 7D, those were just updates. Can we do one motion to accept those committees' updates? Is that okay? Okay, can I have a mover to accept those? Hazel, seconder,
Over here.
Carrie, all in favor? Any opposed? I'm seeing none. Carried. Next is update from Chief Sherry Lynn Hill, but if you wanted to step in, Helen, with your update, if that's okay with everyone, we're adding that.
Oh,
Thank
if you all remember, there was an announcement that they were doing a tribute to Robbie Robertson as a fundraiser for the Woodland Cultural Center. So they had that last Friday at the Gathering Place. The Gathering Place was packed. And it was a very good show. We had our singers there. We had Derek Miller and Lacey Hill and the Bluegrass, the band called the Olanders, bunch of young guys. David Moses and his daughter were singing, and she has a beautiful voice. So we had that, and I got put on the spot because I was the only one there. I had to get up and make a little speech. Ava is helping to run it. Ron Jameson said there's a committee, I guess, to the redevelopment and something of the Woodland Cultural Center. They want to make a new museum. They want to make it more, I guess, positive, more to do different things. So this committee they put together is going to be doing major fundraising. And I know Ron Jimison sits there, Ava, I think Steve is there. I don't know who else sits there, but So that was their first fundraiser that they had, was at the. So I got up and said a few words, although I wasn't prepared, but I did good. They got my, I think it was SNGREC Media gave them $50,000. And they got a check from, I do believe, and I'm not positive, so don't take my word for it, but they got a check from, Grand River Enterprise, I think, for $1 million. I'm not clear if it was Grand River Enterprise or, but I think it was. Because they were talking about Brian Porter. Anyway. So they got a good, big boost to their campaign. Mayor Davis was there. He said a few words. There was a former minister there. I can't think of her name, but she's working with them to do this redevelopment of the Woodland Culture Center. She was there. She said a few words. Robbie Robinson, all his family were there.
Came from Heather George today. That $1 million was from this.
Okay, so the $1 million was from the SNGREC Media. Yeah, it's a new organization, and I think Brian Porter probably has something to do with it. I can't remember who gave him the 50,000 though. Somebody gave him 50,000. Anyway, Robbie Robinson's family was all there. I guess they had lunch up at the Woodland Cultural Center, and they brought his ashes and put them in the river, which was his request. So in their mind, they were bringing Robbie Robinson home. So they did all of that during the day. And they were very pleased with the tribute that was made to him. So it was good. It was a real good evening. I'm assuming they're going to be planning more, but anyway. I was encouraged by everybody that spoke to get council on board. I said I would try. That's all I can do. Well, on board for money. Anyway,
I see Dale with his hand up. Go ahead, Dale. Dale, you're on mute.
Hello?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, yes, we were invited. I know I did send my regrets to not being able to attend. But yeah, it was SNGREC who gave 50,000, and they did cover a lot of that cost for that evening. And then they would be following up with that $1 million that Helen had asked. And yeah, there was a minister, Karina Gould was there, I believe. She had spoken as well. So, but yeah, and I know they are looking for more support from council, and I think it's something we can have discussions when we do some of our internal sources and our allocations. So I think that can be added to their agenda as well. But I just wanted to thank Helen for being there and for speaking up for Six Nations Elected Council.
Thank you both. Okay, we'll move on to number 8, which is Chief Sherry Lynn Hill updates, which I will read aloud. Okay, so Solidarity Day. On June 21st, Chief provided opening remarks on Solidarity Day at Parks and Recreation. The chief would like to thank the organizers, sponsors, and the entertainers for making the day so fun. It was great to see so many families who braved the heat and enjoyed the day. On June 25th, Chief Hill held a virtual meeting with Minister Patty Haju, the Minister, Indigenous Services Canada, to discuss the current closure, mold infestation, and the critical need to restore all the services at the Ganeos building. So this is further to what Nathan described earlier. The call was generally positive, and Minister Haju and her officials expressed their concern. The minister and ISK are now working with SNGR to address the situation. The minister understands the importance of the building location, given the proximity to the center of Ohsweken and neighboring health and community facilities. It took far too long to get this meeting with the minister. The chief staff made multiple inquiries and follow-ups for an in-person or virtual meeting. After meeting with the minister's staff last month and pressing for nation-to-nation relationships with the minister, coupled with an opportunity to meet and speak with the prime minister at an event, the minister's office rapidly offered a time for a virtual discussion. On June 26th, the following day, Chief and her staff had an introductory meeting with the Grand Erie Child and Family Services, CFSGE, Executive Director Sally Johnson and Board Member Greg Anderson. This meeting was requested by Child and Family Services of Grand Erie to strengthen the relationship with SNGR. The chief stressed the importance of building a meaningful relationship with SNGR. Future discussions and conversations on this relationship will be directed to the community committee. Chief provided opening remarks at the 3rd annual Survivors of the Mohawk Institute gathering, which took place in Brantford from Tuesday, June 25th to Thursday, June 27th. Due to other commitments, Chief attended a portion of the gathering each day. It's inspiring and uplifting for survivors of the mush hole from many First Nations throughout the province to come together. So that was the Survivors Secretariat gathering. ISK collaborative process on second generation cutoff and voting thresholds. ISK has begun a collaborative process to engage First Nations and determine which of them would like to be consulted on potential changes to the second generation cutoff and Section 10 voting thresholds. After a recent council discussion and resolution, Chief's office submitted an email response per the ISK process, affirming that we have feedback to provide. Our email did not endorse any consultation process, but asked for confirmation on how our views, which we have a right to be heard in the process, will be received without ISK labeling our input as consultation. The email went out prior to the June 30th deadline and will be followed up with a separate, more formal letter providing more substantive feedback in conjunction with any feedback we provide through their collaborative process. July 9th, Contact Brant meeting, an introductory meeting which took many months to coordinate, was for SNGR to understand how Contact Brant is serving Six Nations members and to connect them with the Six Nations Director of Wellbeing, who was in attendance. Contact Brant requested assistance on how to complete assessments, intakes in a culturally appropriate and generally what they can do to support Six Nations community. Contact Brant left packages which provide an overview of the services they provide, and the Director of Wellbeing will undertake the necessary follow-up. Event at Cultural Center with Minister of Canadian Heritage took place on July 3rd. Chief attended a funding announcement at the Woodland Cultural Center where the federal government announced 1.4 million in funding for Woodland Cultural Center's Save the Evidence project. Such awesome news for the Cultural Center. They've been getting good news the last few days then, the Cultural Center. Meeting with Lansdowne on July 4th. Chief staff, in conjunction with the Six Nations Wellbeing Department Director, Deborah Jonathan, had an introductory meeting with Lansdowne Children's Center Executive Director, Rita Marie Hadley, and the Director of Client Services, Jennifer Huxley. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the future of the relationship between SNGR and Lansdowne Children's Center. SNGR staff spoke about the importance of meaningful relationships with urban organizations like Lansdowne. And we have one further announcement. There was a call for council members to get in the Tim Hortons Camp Day dunk tank. I'm looking at all of you. The location is the Chiefswood Road location. The date is Wednesday, July 17th between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Show up anytime. And Chief Sherry Lynn Hill has accepted the invitation. So all of this is for our information. Do we need to accept that with a motion? Does anybody have any questions? Nathan wants to know if he's allowed to participate in dunking counselors. I see Dale with his hand up. He's volunteering as tribute. Dale, go ahead.
Nathan can be dunked, yes.
Nathan? Would you like to be dunked?
I thought that's what he was asking.
Okay, so that's just for our information. Can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the chief's update? Carrie and Hazel. Everyone in favor? Any opposed? I'm seeing none. And the motion is carried. I don't see any scheduling. And the next item would be a motion to adjourn. Audrey and Carrie. I thank you all for watching us tonight and participating in this community update. And this would be my first time chairing, so I'll be accepting 5-star reviews only. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.